Better health, better care, lower cost. Everyone's talking about healthcare, but how much do you know? Better Health is brought to you in part by Sleep Better Northwest. Explore the healthcare system and listen to experts with your host, Sue Lonnie Madsen, here on Better Health.
Okay, well, welcome to Better Health. My guest today is Dr. John Tomkowiak, who is the founding dean of the Elson S. Floyd School of Medicine at Washington State University here in Spokane.
Yes.
Welcome, John. I'm glad you could come back.
So glad to be here again.
Well, it's been not quite a year, but I know there's been a lot going on at the school, and if you could, I'd be interested in hearing an update on the latest.
Absolutely. So a lot's been happening since we last spoke in May. Probably the most exciting thing is recruited our first class of students.
Yeah.
We had over 700 applicants for 60 spots. And every student that we have in our class is connected or tied to the state of Washington.
Great.
And that's so
Grow your own always works better.
Exactly. And, you know, because a part of our mission and vision is really to serve those challenging areas in the state, which include rural and urban underserved. And so recruiting students from those areas and then training them in those areas is going to be a great motivator for them to understand those populations and then know how to serve them when they get out. So they started in August, and they have been doing wonderfully ever since. I've got to tell this one story, which I'm so proud. They were in school for 5 straight days. The first Saturday they had off, we had over 15 students volunteer an entire Saturday to feed the homeless underneath one of the bridges here in Spokane.
Cool.
And I think that just shows the quality and the type of student we recruited to our school. They're very dedicated to serving the people of the state of Washington.
Right, and that's such a great way for them to build that professional network, just starting from that very first week.
That's exactly right.
To support each other. So now they're underway, and I understand you are now recruiting for the second class.
It's hard to believe, but we are. And we actually have some helpers this time around because the students that we currently have been very engaged in sort of the recruitment process for the next group of students. They're amazing advocates for what we're doing here, our mission, the curriculum that we have that they're incredibly engaged in. And I got to say, we are still modifying it as our students have come on board. They've given us great suggestions and ideas about how to make it better already. And so we're really trying to stay on that cutting edge almost minute by minute, month by month. And our students are helping us get there. So it's been very exciting recruiting the next group of students who will follow this first class. And it's a tough class to follow, but already we have some amazing students that we've recruited to our second year class.
When will that recruitment period end?
So it really ends around the 1st of May. That's when students across the country have to make decisions about what medical school they will go to if they've been accepted to more than one. And so last year we ended up making about 90 offers for our 60 spots. Which is a yield rate of about 66%, which is pretty high in terms of most medical schools. So the students that we do recruit really are coming here because of the mission and, you know, what we said we're going to offer them in terms of the training to be future physicians.
One of the things that you mentioned was that they're already coming up with suggestions, and we talked a little bit before we started recording about some of the headwinds perhaps at a long-standing program. Perfectly natural. That happens with any institution. But you're kind of starting off from the base, starting off from the dock with the wind behind you. What are you finding as some challenges and some opportunities in that situation?
There are so many things when we envision the future of healthcare that we want to get to and that we want to make sure our students are exposed to now so they can be prepared to engage in that environment when they graduate and are out in practice. A few of those things are things like team-based care or leadership. Right now, we all talk about the importance of team-based care, but there are very few examples in the real world where that's working, it's working well, and we're utilizing everyone on the healthcare team to their maximum potential. part of the reason why we're not so good at it is we don't always know what the maximum potential is of everybody on the team. And so that's one thing we're already preparing our future students to appreciate and understand is, what are the maximum contributions that each member of the healthcare team can provide so that the sum can definitely be more than the individual parts. And that's really part of the answer of how we get to more economical healthcare, more accessible healthcare, and healthcare that eventually has better outcomes. So that's one example. The other thing is this concept of leadership. Oftentimes physicians are put in leadership positions just because they are a physician, but doctors don't have any specific training in leadership. And that's really a big problem. And as we started this medical school a year ago, I think I actually mentioned this on your show, that when we talked to CEOs of hospitals and health systems, they said they really needed leaders in their organizations. And so we have built a leadership curriculum so that every student, besides getting their MD degree, will get a certificate in leadership, which is the equivalent of 4 master level courses in leadership. And a few of those courses are more theoretical, but then a few of those are very practical. And it's, how do you lead teams? How do you lead in different healthcare environments? And then how do you lead in your community? And so, and I'll just close with this. One of the important things about being a great leader is also being a great follower. And so our students are getting lots of opportunities to be followers, to sometimes take the lead. And I think they're already exhibiting some amazing leadership skills that I certainly didn't have, when I was going to med school.
I think one of the advantages of leadership training is that you do understand when to recognize who's the appropriate leader for a given situation and setting.
That's right.
And has the skills to do it, and know when it's not you.
Yes.
And it's not you always.
That's exactly right. And I think for physicians, knowing your limitations is so key to great patient outcomes, because when you know where your limits end, you can then reach out to your colleagues or other members of the healthcare team, and then they can come in and help. And so that's a part of what our students are learning.
Okay. So as you've set up the experiences for the students out in the rural areas and the underserved areas, is there an interesting story that's come out of one of those situations?
Well, absolutely. And there are sort of two things I want to remind you of is we are a geographically distributed school. And so while all of the students will have their first 2 years of education mostly in Spokane, in their third and fourth years, they'll spend both of those years in cohorts of 15 in different campuses around the state, one in Vancouver, another in Tri-Cities, another in Everett, and then of course right here in Spokane. And to begin to get them to know those communities, they already have spent 2 1-week what we call intersessions in those communities. And 2 amazing things have happened. The first is we have what we call a homestay program, where people in these communities have offered up their homes and have offered to feed our students and sort of expose them to the community. And our students are loving it, and our homestay participants, the families who have offered to host our students, are loving it as well. And so many great stories have come out of those informal interactions that our students are having in and around those communities. And when I talk about Everett, Tri-Cities, and Vancouver, that's really just the home base for our operations. And we have folks in the homestay program that are spread out in much smaller towns and communities around those. So our students are really starting to get exposure and a feeling for what it might be like to live in a rural community of maybe 2,500 or less, and what options you do or don't have in terms of healthcare in those communities. So while they're away during those intersessions, they're hooked up with a preceptor, and so they get to experience healthcare, and then also other healthcare providers who are on the team. They're getting to see what they're doing in those communities. And then we have a community night where we bring all the families and students and some of the healthcare team together and just sort of share experiences amongst each other. And that's been fabulous. So we really are trying to literally put our money where our mouth is in terms of being a community-based medical school by getting our students out into the communities very early on so that they can understand what the needs are. It's very exciting.
Okay, so I just thought of a suggestion. You could think about this.
Yes.
Since you're being innovative. I'm an EMS captain for a volunteer fire district. We have 4 EMTs at our station. When I'm here, we're down
Yes.
at partial staffing level. If you had students who were interested, who would take the EMT course on some of those homestays in their later years, they could actually really volunteer as part of the community, because every one of those rural communities, I guarantee, has the same problem, recruiting people.
Sue, I think that's a great idea. There's a few medical schools in the country right now that during the first few months of training, they offer EMT training to their students, in part just to give them some very early clinical skills. And it does give
very,
them...
very basic. But
but it also gives them very a practical skill set, and something like you said, they can actually use right away. So that's certainly something our team is considering, and I have to say we did look into that when we initially were starting the school, and our initial assessment is we didn't have all the resources to do it for everyone right away, but it is an amazingly good idea, and I do think we're going to pursue that down the road.
Okay, well, that'd be kind of a cool thing to see, and let me know when you do that.
Okay.
I'll sign up 3. I've got spare rooms.
Awesome.
So we're getting the note that we're going to kind of wrap up a part of this. I want to save some time to talk about innovative curriculum, but some challenges. Let's close this first half with just some ideas. What are the challenges that you weren't expecting, maybe, but that you've had to overcome?
Well, I think one of the challenges is we've recruited a pretty amazing team from across the country that are bringing ideas, sort of leading edge, best practice ideas from all over. And some of these ideas, frankly, have never been tried because of that inertia that you talked about that's sometimes so hard to overcome. Some of these ideas are amazing and have worked out, and some of them, after we've tried them, didn't turn out like we thought. What I will say about our students is that they have been amazing at being flexible, understanding that as part of being a first class, that sometimes we are going to be trying things and we don't know the answer. So they've been great at giving us feedback. But still, it's a challenge for them and it's a challenge for us. Obviously, as healthcare providers, we want to provide the best experience for our students. And when it doesn't exactly work out, that gets to us. But overall, our students are telling us that the innovation and the curriculum that we're bringing is far exceeding their expectations. And, the expectations that they share often with colleagues around the country at other medical schools, they're getting to do things that their other students across the country aren't getting to do.
Well, the fact that they're your best advocates for recruiting the next class says something. And that learning to be flexible and to think about and provide feedback is an excellent lesson in itself, especially in rural practice where you are maybe the only one at many, many times in your day. So we'll go ahead and let's come back and we'll talk about the curriculum and integrating mental health and physical health training.
That sounds fantastic.
Hi, this is Kurt Stockwell with Well Dressed Walrus. We are a local website design and development company here in Spokane. What we do is build beautiful, usable websites for local businesses. A website needs to be beautiful, it needs to be usable for your users, your customers, and yourself. Contact us anytime. We'd love to talk with you about your online marketing.
The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Okay. So on that innovation, that cutting edge, you've had to create a curriculum from scratch, which is a big challenge, kind of truly a blank slate. I know one of the things that's been a big issue in discussion in Spokane here with the Community Mental Health Forum, with some real advocacy from Dr. Matt Layton, who's part of the faculty, is how do we reintegrate the mind and the body into one person for healthcare training? And what are some things that you've done in the curriculum development to help reinforce that integration from the beginning?
Well, I'm really proud of our faculty and the teams that have worked on this concept. Being a psychiatrist by training, I've actually advocated for this concept most of my career. And
yeah, I forgot that was your particular specialty.
Yeah.
Yes, that makes it even better.
And I've spent a lot of time early on in my career actually talking to primary care doctors and healthcare teams about how do they better integrate mental health care into their practices. What we know is that the primary contact for most patients surrounding mental health is some kind of primary care provider. And they don't get all the necessary skills and training that they should receive to feel confident about taking care of the most common problems that present to them, like depression or anxiety. So the more skills we can give them early on, the more opportunity we give them to practice, the better patients will be. And we know there's a strong connection both ways between mental health and physical health. We know that if you have worsening mental health, it can oftentimes worsen your medical conditions. And if your medical condition gets worse, your mental health can also deteriorate. So they're integrally connected. It makes no sense to treat them differently. And so we've developed an approach at the medical school, I think, that is definitely leading edge in terms of integrating concepts of mental health and mental care into the primary care environment for all encounters, so that it's not just a special thing, but it's something that you inquire about all the time. And it really gets to this other factor, which is quality of life. It's very important to see health through the eyes of your patient, and we call this a patient-centered approach. And it's important to understand what the patient needs are or desires are regarding their health care. And you can't get at that if you don't ask the right questions. So I think our team has thought very carefully about how do we ingrain this in our students early on so it becomes a habit, it becomes a practice, so when they go out into their communities, they're awesome at integrating both of those concepts.
Now that brought to mind the book Being Mortal by Atul Gawande. I'm sure that you've probably read that because it's really about that same thing. It's about seeing healthcare as supporting what the patient's definition of quality of life is, so that treatments and recommendations are supporting instead of interfering with something that may be very important to that patient. And that it's really good listening skills that have been perhaps not valued as much as technology.
And in addition to that, what we know is when you truly partner with your patient and really engage them as sort of an equal, that they're more likely to follow the plan, whatever the plan is. And so I think our students are learning very early on that skill of partnering with the patient is really important to successful outcomes.
Yeah, that's always been a big part of nursing education. The fact that you have the nursing school there as well, how have you partnered with the nursing school and also pharmacy, which has become a growing part of any medical practice?
It's quite an opportunity having those colleges geographically literally right next door. Some of the problems in interprofessional education just are simply around logistics and connecting students' busy schedules with each other. And having those colleges right next to each other, having deans that are very team-oriented and they understand the importance of our students working together has been really great. And it has allowed the three colleges to work together to envision programming for our students that they're engaged in. And what I find that's very different about what we're doing is it's very practical oriented. It's not just having students sit in a classroom together, but it's having them see patients, whether real patients or simulated or standardized patients, and actually working through real life problems in a way that happens in the real world, where they can see how the team has to work together for better patient outcomes.
That's an excellent opportunity.
Yes.
Now, if you could just get, say, EWU's dental hygiene program so that we could treat the mouth the same as the rest of the body, we'd really be looking at the whole patient.
Absolutely.
So what do you have coming up in this next year that you're looking to launch?
So there's some really exciting things that we're doing. The first is we're launching our interprofessional practice plan associated with the college. So these will be our faculty who are with the College of Medicine or Nursing and Pharmacy, who are going to be treating patients under the flag of the WSU Health Science Campus and the College of Medicine. And this is really important for the training of our students, because we need to make sure our students have great examples of how interprofessional teamwork works in the real world. And so we're going to be able to give that to them. And then it's also our direct outreach to not only this community, but eventually the communities in Eastern Washington and eventually across the state, delivering high quality health care to particularly those people in rural and urban underserved areas that oftentimes don't have the best access right now. One of the awesome things is we recently had a donation to help support one of our mobile health units that is actually going to do a lot of rural outreach.
Right, from the farmer in Othello who's, I just read that article
That's
this morning,
exactly
and
right.
I forgot his name. But yeah,
We're so blessed.
Very generous
Very,
donation.
very
from
generous, and that is going to enable us to build our first mobile unit. And we hope sometime in late summer to early fall to have that going. And our students will be on it along with our faculty, and they'll be doing direct outreach.
So the mobile units, this is something that you've been planning. How will that integrate with the existing rural health clinics?
So there's lots of opportunities for partnership. One of the things that we want to fill are sort of the niches that aren't being filled by anybody else. And what we do know is that in rural areas, patients often have a hard time getting that first contact and then being tied in with a system or a partner. So right now we have over 33 affiliation agreements signed across the state with different healthcare entities. We have probably another 30 in progress. And so our hope is that as we begin our rural outreach, that we will be able to access all of the healthcare team and support infrastructure in the areas that we're serving and begin to be sort of the glue that helps connect all these different resources. And when you look at the success of rural programs, that's one of the key pieces that you have to put in place, is the connection between all the resources. And so we hope to be a part of that.
Okay. I could also see a place for finding out when some of those very small communities host very large events once a year, and the hospitals have to try and staff up, or a doctor wants to take a vacation and there's nobody to fill in. I mean, that would be another place to provide that kind of backup and connection.
Absolutely. And that's what we really want to be, is we want to be a partner with communities across the state and build these relationships where we all can begin to really rely on each other and build better health for the entire state of Washington.
It brought to mind a headline in the newspaper in Guam when I was visiting, which is really a very small community, and they just said the only orthopedic surgeon in the island was going to be gone on vacation for weeks, so nobody break your leg. Yeah. And in some small communities, it can be kind of like that. Doc's taking a vacation. Somebody's filling in, but
absolutely,
take care of yourself. So you could be that backup.
We absolutely could be.
Okay. So when will those that mobile health unit, the timeline for that, is that's going to be?
So that should be
late
late August or early
soon.
fall of this year is when we hope to have that first mobile unit up and running. Yeah.
Cool. And will you be able to incorporate training in telehealth into your curriculum for these future rural doctors?
Absolutely. It's an important part of access issues, particularly in rural areas. And so there's already pieces built into the curriculum where students can begin to learn to interact in a telehealth environment. There are some different skills that you need to learn when you're interacting across a video screen, and you have different kinds of resources at both the patient's end and your end to help you, but you need to know what those are, how to employ them or deploy them, and then how to make sure to follow up with patients. So it is a great tool if you know how to use it, and what I think the literature is showing is that not everybody who uses telehealth knows how to use it optimally. And so that's one of the things that we at the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine think we can do is not only employ those technologies, but help do research so that we can learn exactly how to use them in the best way, and then inform providers across the nation about how to use telehealth well.
Yeah. Well, I would, even if someone was the rural doc who wasn't on the video end, you'd still need to know how to put your patient at ease and educate them as to how to get the most out of it.
Absolutely.
Because I know telepsychiatry has been very successful in most trials that I've read about.
Yes, and I was fortunate enough to be in a training program that employed one of the very early uses of telepsychiatry, and so that's sort of been a part of my DNA for quite some time.
I know there's some other things going on now with trying to have monitoring at home and keeping people aging in place, which is, again, a big issue for rural communities, is so that their elders don't have to move away someplace when they can no longer live on their own.
It's very exciting to think about what I call the precision medicine, this idea of collecting lots of information and data around patients. And part of that is through the technology you described, sensors and other things either that people wear. There's now sensors you can ingest. There's sensors you can put in your home. And those are all things that might enable us to take care of people wherever they are. And I love that idea of being able to keep people in their homes, the place where they feel most comfortable with, get them high quality care wherever they are. And that precision medicine, using those technologies, is one way to do that. The other thing that I think we're seeing a resurgence of that I'm incredibly happy about is the idea of the home visit. And you know, there's, whether it's physicians or other healthcare professionals, they're starting to realize that there's some patients that it makes a lot of sense to visit them in their home because actually we can save costs, deliver better care by doing it that way. So I think you know, not every good idea is a new idea, and sometimes we have to revisit things that we might have forgotten about.
I had a director of operations I was interviewing at a critical access hospital who said that she really felt like for many chronic conditions, or even just for monitoring the health of someone who has something that could be problematic, but it's hard to get them into the clinic, that she really thought that bringing back the home visit was going to be key to managing complex or chronic conditions, as opposed to the this went wrong, we're going to fix it and send you on your way kind of condition. Really two different kinds of medical practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm giving the high sign for another minute to close. Is some final thought you'd like to leave us with, perhaps?
Well, I think the last thing that I feel very encouraged about the healthcare of tomorrow is the concept of really better health and healthier living, and trying to change the paradigm from just taking care of disease to promoting health in the first place. And that really is going to take all of us to think differently about our own health and what we need to do to stay more healthy. And that's a part of what we're teaching our future physicians. So, Sue, thank you so much for having me on your show again. And next time I come back, I hope to tell you even more.
Yeah, well, I look forward to meeting that first new generation of doctors that you graduate.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Better Health with Sulani Madsen is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Better Health is brought to you in part by Sleep Better Northwest. Ask Sulani a question, recommend a guest or topic, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Cheers to better health, and thanks for listening.